Why do I keep choosing my Sunday afternoons to spend with really depressing films? Hi, my name's June. Welcome to another review video on my channel. Today I'll be talking about the Netflix film Devil All the Time, or The Devil All the Time I think is the full title. It's based on a novel. It was just released a week ago, so it's really fresh. I didn't really hear or see anything about it. I don't know the book, I'm not familiar with it. I just saw it popping up on the internet. I saw Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson. At least those two have been marketed the most. And I thought, yeah, it just looked interesting. Had no clue what the film is about. Turns out it's yet again one of these films that leaves you a bit depressed afterwards. I don't know what's going on at the moment. The kind of films I'm watching, it seems like I'm a depressed person, which is actually the opposite of me. But for some reason, that's my lot currently with my film selections. The film itself is a bit difficult to put it in a box, to belabel it actually. My wife actually said something that is, I feel, most fitting. It seems a lot like a Tarantino film. So you've got a few sort of storylines that are going parallel at the same time. At first you're not quite sure how they interconnect, and then there is some connection that you discover. But yeah, so the film at times it seems a bit disjointed, but it all makes sense eventually once you get all the connections between the characters and such. Again, I'm not quite sure which genre it's meant to be. I suppose you could call it a sort of a thriller, maybe, possibly. It's definitely a drama. It's set in the sort of Kentucky area of America. The town itself has got one of the most fascinating names I've seen in a long time. The town is called Knock'em-Stiff, which is actually an existing town, which is very amusing. I googled it very quickly on Wikipedia. It says they're not quite sure where the name came from, but obviously it's rather unusual and very funny. Knock'em-Stiff. Yeah. As usual, I won't delve into spoilers. It's about this small town, and you've got people who are connected in various ways, and basically it's one particular family that's befallen with tragedy throughout the whole film, and their struggle with this and how they cope with their life. They're a poor family, so you've got those issues in there as well, of them dealing with that. And yes, it's a very character-based story. It's set in the 1950s and 1960s. It actually starts towards the end of the Second World War, because one of the characters, he actually brings back, as you can expect, some psychological baggage from that war. The story seems to take a really hefty jab at religion, in this case specifically the Catholic set of beliefs, and it's rather drastic. If you are a religious person and you don't like your religion sort of being portrayed in a bad way, I'll call it. That's oversimplifying, but I hope you get my gist. Then this film is probably not for you. It's, as I mentioned previously, it's a bit of a very depressing film. The things that happen to these characters are not nice. It's an ensemble cast you've got here, so there are many characters in it. As I mentioned before, I was only aware of Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson, but there's a whole group of very excellent actors involved with this film, so too many to list here actually. But as per usual, I've got all the details listed here, so if you're interested in the exact names, you can check here. Yeah, so you have time jumps, so you have parents and kids, and so what happens to them and how they deal with certain situations and incidents later on in their life. All these things, even towards the very end, you've still got things coming back that were actually from the very start of the film. So it's really, again, that's sort of a bit of Tarantino-ish, how it's all connected. I quite like that. Overall, the story, it is, as I mentioned again, it is depressing, but it's a good story. It's a very powerful story. I feel absolutely sorry for some of the characters, particularly Tom Holland. He is, I would say, although it's an ensemble, he does stand out, and there is a lot of focus on him. So I would call him the main character, the protagonist, definitely. At times the story, it's not quite clear where it's going and how some of the scenes make sense. So I do feel that it probably could have been edited together a bit better. They could have, I don't know again what the book's like, whether there's some changes there that they made in the film. But it does sometimes feel like it's going nowhere. Some scenes they don't, even after having watched the whole film, I'm not quite sure that some scenes were actually necessary. Overall, it's a very moving story nonetheless, even although there's some things that are not quite so ideal. The film was directed by Antonio Campos, who I had not heard before. He was also involved in the screenplay. I'm not quite sure if it is his first film. It's a hell of a start, I'll definitely say that. Overall, it's a very, very good film. I highly recommend it, particularly for the acting. You've got Tom Holland, who does a magnificent job. I believe that he is trying very early on to not be typecast as Spider-Man, or sort of probably only as a wee sort of joyful kid or person in that way. So here he definitely achieves that. It's really the other end of the spectrum. His character goes through a lot of things, and he is the person I feel most for in the whole story. Excellent performance. It really is a stellar performance that he delivers here. You have Robert Pattinson, who I would select as the other really significant performance. His role isn't that big in the film in terms of screen time, but the way he does it, absolutely powerful. I think it's great that just so shortly after Tenet I get to see him again in another role that shows me that he is a really good character. Particularly with the accents. Obviously you've got a very, very heavy accent in this film, and everyone does it magnificently, which I believe won't be that easy, to deliver such a strong accent and still be so in the scene and in the character to also put onto that a very strong performance. Yes, so those two definitely, but you have many other people in here. I like Bill Skarsgård as well, for instance, but you have many other people involved as well. The setting I like actually quite a lot. The story is depressing and it's juxtaposed with really warm colours. So you have all these little town, looks very idyllic. You have a lot of nature, also a lot of scenes where people are basically on the outskirts of the town or in the forest even. So you've got very beautiful images and, like I say, very, very warm colours, which is a high contrast to the story itself. Beautifully shot. So overall, I highly recommend this film, particularly for the stellar performances, if nothing else. Like I say, if the stories or characters at times don't make sense, just stick with them. By the end they will all make sense, and unfortunately when you have the whole picture, it's just a really depressing one. Unfortunately. But I love what Netflix is doing, particularly now. Obviously not many films are being released in the cinemas, of course, but Netflix just keeps going, and they are steadily building a really, really solid library of high quality content. I must applaud them for that. Just recently they increased their prices again, and I do hope sincerely that they will stop doing this very soon. But I must say that with the library they're building, they definitely can at least try and justify these costs, because as far as I'm concerned, they can keep going. If they keep producing these things and you can watch them in the comfort of your home if you've got a Netflix subscription anyway, I am all for that. Again, one last time, if you don't like films where religion is put in a very, very bad light, this film will not be for you. There's some very, I would say it does at times feel very cliched and predictable as well. It's done a bit much, it's a bit predictable, and we've had films before where they show the highly religious South and all those things that come with that. So I did feel that it was a bit too predictable and a bit too much in that way. Other than that, one thing before I go, I'm sorry to say that next week I won't be able to do my usual drone video. I've not been able to go out and film with the drone. It's many reasons, one of them being that finally my parents are coming to visit. Obviously with the pandemic that's not so easy. It's going to be the first time they will see their granddaughter in person, so obviously we'll be busy enjoying as much family time as we can. At the same time, my Taekwondo club, we've restarted our training, also due to the pandemic. That's more complicated than usual. We've got a lot more organising to do around that with all sorts of rules, etc. And this meant that I just did not find the time to go out and film with my drone. I'm really sorry about this. I did say I would plan to do one once a month, Unfortunately, I won't be able to uphold that here. I hope you'll forgive me, but instead I thought I'll take this opportunity and go back to the in-flight entertainment series. I've kept it in the back of my mind all the time, hoping that somewhere I'd find time to do one of those videos again. I'll use this opportunity and I'll do that, just to make it more interesting for you, or hopefully invite you to watch that. It will be about The Matrix, which is one of my favourite films of all time. I'll thank you for watching this video. If you like and share it around, that would be excellent. That would help me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you want further video reviews from me, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.